Hello, everybody. We're just waiting for the rest of the audience to join us. We got Pete and Mac, the usual practice show tech team. And today we're joined by Donny and Matt from ShowCode, otherwise known as SoundBase. So we're going to let our audience keep filing in here. And we're back again, guys. It's been a couple weeks. Took a little hiatus, and a little technology evolved around us, huh? During this time period, would you say? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just getting hand signals from Pete. So this is great. We're looking forward to a kind of an exciting time today. Obviously, when we first started this whole thing, we had no idea what the world was going to bring. And now, a little while later, a few months, year, we're seeing that while a lot of stuff has changed, a lot of stuff's still the same. And wireless only got more popular. Only more things that are wireless devices. And maybe there was a little concern at one point that, will we ever do shows again? And well, that's been proven wrong. We were incorrect on that one. But again, thanks for joining us today. We'll do some quick re-intros, kind of get the day going. Obviously, Pete, everybody would remember his hair is not quite as green as it has been in every episode, but it's still green enough, right? And my hair is just running away. And Mac, we're here again together. And it's been like I said, it's been a while since we've been together. But the more things change, the more they stay the same. And
yep.
Excited to be back again. I think we got a pretty good amount of our audience in. As usual, let's kind of just talk people down the format before we start intros of our guests.
Well, sure. We're heavily into Q&A as we were in our previous sessions, but we're in Zoom this time. And there's a different format in Zoom for doing Q&A. So at the bottom of your page, there is a Q&A tab. That's where you can ask your questions. No one, I think only the panelists will see those questions. And we will either respond to them immediately by typing in there, or we will answer it live in the moment, or we will save it for a little Q&A session as Donny and Matt come to different sections of their presentation about SoundBase. We'll open it up to questions, and then we will return to those questions that were asked previously. Please be aware that your question may not be answered in the moment, that it may come at the Q&A time at the end, if it's not judged urgent, but we will try to get to every question before the end of the session. And the session will be plenty long to cover everything.
Yeah. We've booked a lot of time, so we're all good there. We have a bit of a reputation for not having short sessions, but our topics aren't short. And I think one of the cool things about this particular topic is you can go and get the software for free. You can sign up. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and go over to the soundbase.app website, register. one of the great things about this is you can follow right along with what Donny and Matt are going to be talking about, and which is pretty neat. So many times we're talking about hardware or we're dealing with virtual software demos. And this is one of those moments where you can be interacting right from the beginning. So take a second here to go sign up for that if you haven't already. And I'm going to go ahead and invite Donny and Matt to the screen here to join us. And you can see here that a couple guys with good experience in our industry, right? Both Donny with professional wireless and Matt with Mask Sound. This isn't your basic software that, you know, somebody decided just to put an app on the App Store and was going to figure it out. These are a couple folks that bring our industry's understanding, and I think everybody will see that as you go through the feature sets, that this is a product that is intended for the pro user. But what I think is even more important is that it's equally usable for that beginner, for that intermediate, that it really touches across all levels of users. And RF coordination is something that it's certainly grown. The number of channels we're using on shows are not going down. You know, Pete, your experience, I think mirrors a lot of folks where, and Mac, you as well, where intercom and frequency coordination are two tasks that a lot of times get assigned to the same person. While on larger events, that's not particularly practical. In many times, it's just really not an option to not have that bundle. You know, Pete, why don't you kind of set the table for us here on this? I know you've been using the program, and you know, kind of talk to us.
The most exciting part about it is how this RF coordination industry has grown while the spectrum has shrunk. And I think that's why. I think the fact that our cohorts in the federal government have been working for our own interests, as it were, and giving us less and less and less spectrum to work for. Therefore, we're needed more and more and more. Go for it, feds. So next week, Thursday rather, 2 days from now, we're going to have more of this same thing. However, Donny and Matt are going to have one of their more exciting users on, which will show the power of this software. Now, the power of it is you can do coordination for any number of shows at the same time in the same area. And let's say they're doing it for Broadway. So you might have a Broadway theater with a theater on either side of you, and therefore your frequencies are taking into account protecting them to a certain extent. But another theater down the block could use the same frequencies, but be in the same coordination. And everybody can see what everybody is doing because it's a shared program, much like Google Docs or Google Spreadsheet. So everybody sees that you're on, and it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I agree, Pete. And I think, you know, to continue, is it alliteration or however you do that, the C's? The two words that come to my mind when I look at your software, guys, is community and collaboration. And if anything has grown out of the pandemic, it's those two things. That collaboration is just expected in software now. That I need to be able to share, and I need to bring my team in across world zones, not just locally, not on just a server. And then the other part of community. This is a software that's been built by listening to the community and bringing feature sets in and understanding what's important to the marketplace and responding to that. So I think, why don't we start moving into this? I'm going to turn this over to Pete to kind of bring us in. I'm going to pop off the screen for a little bit here. I'm sure I'll have some questions for you guys as we go along, but let's jump into the meat of this.
I've asked Donny and Matt to divide their presentation into sections. And as they deal with each section, hopefully we'll answer the questions you have in that question, but don't not ask a question just because we're out of the section you're interested in. Keep asking them because we'll get to them eventually one way or the other. Why don't you go ahead, Donny, and share your screen with the list of things we're going to talk about and just start talking.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Matt, Kelly, and Pete for giving us this opportunity to share our product that we've been working so hard on the past couple of years. And also to everybody at home or at work right now listening in. So my name's Donny Kuser. I do RF coordination and intercom deployments. Matt works for a software company right now, but we're both, but used to be very active in the audio industry, for audio industry. So this is a software company built upon two guys that are audio guys. SoundBase is actually just one product that we have. We have multiple different products. We also do external client work and license different API services. SoundBase is pretty interesting because, like as Kelly had just said, it's built collaboratively with the community. We felt that was something that was missing. This isn't software that's a companion to hardware. This isn't software built by software engineers that don't do RF coordination. This is software built by people who actually do RF coordination for a living. And we think that kind of is our secret sauce, is we know exactly what people want. We know how to listen to people, and we try to take as much feedback as possible and shape the product to be as good as it could be. So what is SoundBase? SoundBase is a collaborative web-based software suite for audio techs. It has 4 applications in it. Chord is probably the most popular one right now. It's currently live. Oh, and something to know is SoundBase is currently in beta, but it's free to try as Kelly had mentioned, and anyone can sign up at any time. So there's 4 apps. Chord is for RF coordination. Nexus is an intercom documentation application. Harmony is like an audio patch input documentation application also. And Dashboard is more for crew management, scheduling, IP tables, and etc. Currently live on the beta right now is Chord and Nexus. Harmony and Dashboard are coming soon. So what are the advantages of SoundBase? Well, it keeps everyone that's working on the same show all in line and all in sync. It's real time, just like Google Sheets. You can actually see project history, people making changes in real time. And it's really tailored towards the audio professional.
So one of the reasons that we decided to go this web-based route instead of building an offline application that would compete, that's a single purpose RF coordination application, was this aspect of sharing information. Obviously, nowadays it's just expected that you have a real-time application, you have collaboration and sharing, but none of our existing software solutions really had that feature. And especially this was born out of the pandemic. Don and I were both laid off. We had no work, and we were trying to solve the problems that we then had the downtime to solve. And so on a show site as an audio tech at A2, I would hate getting a frequency PDF emailed to me, and then I don't know what version it is, depending on how the tech that sent it to me. I have to manage that on my end. Similarly with input lists, Harmony kind of handles that as well. You have the most up-to-date information right in front of you with a tracking history. So if the frequency coordinator does a change on show site, I can just view on my phone and say, oh, that frequency was recalculated and it went from this number to this other number. So this information is all updated in real time. And those are the features that make both the show go off better, get loaded in faster. It's just a much better workflow than having to manage multiple report outputs.
Matt, do you want to kind of dive into some of the general features?
Sure, yeah. So if you want to show the project page, Don.
Sure.
So this is your project page that you use to create new ones and open and manage and search and all of that. Think of it just like your Google Drive. Your projects house all the information, all the data for across all apps in the software suite. So
Matt, one sec. I just wanted to let the Zoom users know that they can zoom in, forgive the pun there, zoom in on parts of the screen they want to see better if this text is too small for you. So in your view options for your screen, you should be able to zoom in and pan around as needed.
Good. And Don's got that cursor follower, which is cool. So a SoundBase project houses all the information across all apps. So you don't have to have a separate project to manage your intercom and a separate Google Sheet for managing your wireless microphones. It's all managed right from there. You can bounce around between apps like Don's showing with the open menu. And also when you're in a project, you can click the app icon to launch between different projects. There's a built-in app search that allows you to to search for items between the apps as well. So as far as a project is concerned, there's multiple levels in a project, just like at a venue. You've got your venue itself, which we consider those as a site. And then you've got zones, and then you've got groups as far as RF coordination is concerned. But every project that shares that site level. So if I make a venue for Madison Square Garden and Cord, I also have access to that venue in Nexus to do intercom management at that same venue. That way, all your information stays synced across the project. Don, did you want to start a new project? We can get to that next section,
Sure.
which I think is the new project info getter thing. So when you make a new project, we don't require much information up front, but we do a lot of stuff in the back end. So the only thing we actually require is a project location. And there's a bunch of reasons for this, which we can get into once Don launches the project. But that's all you need to do to start a project. Sorry, Don, you can take over.
If you want to continue, Matt, because it.
All right. So like that, just by entering the site location, if you're familiar with wireless coordination programs, you can see at the bottom we have this plot, and that's showing all the exclusion ranges, whether they're DTV or it's public safety or astronomy or land mobile. All that was pulled in via our TV data API. We're pretty proud of that system that we have in place. We can talk more about that later. But as far as a workflow standpoint, you're done. You don't have to go search or enter in a zip code or anything like that. It's already done that for you.
Something to add to that, Matt, using the Google autocomplete, unlike other frequency calculation applications or TV lookups, putting in a general zip code of a location is not as accurate as a precise location. So for instance, this project, I typed in the shed. Instead of just typing in the generic zip code, typing in just a generic zip code will just either go to like the post office or just the center of that actual zip code location, but that could be 20 to 30 miles off from where your actual show location is. So requiring a precise location.
Stop that, Kelly.
So putting in a precise location will give you the most accurate results. So as Matt signified before, you can jump in between apps. So a project houses all 4 applications. Right now, just in our beta, just Nexus and Chord are available. But eventually you'll be able to also go into Harmony and Dashboard. Up here is your project name, and most of the text in the app is editable. So it's just as simple as clicking it and typing in your name. Here we have some project info, and then up here is your site. So Matt, would you like me to kind of open up the site modal and we can talk about that?
Sure. So like I mentioned before, sites are global across the application. If you notice in the modal, in the dialog box here, we call them modals and dialogues. I don't know what the correct term is, but you see site time zone and site location. Those are pulled right ahead from the type ahead when Don created the project. So you don't have to set up this information. It's all editable via the TV Scout, which we can show you later. Site notes are just generic notes to share, and then we can come back to this read-only link later. Interactions are only present to be editable if you have multiple sites. And that was the demonstration that really advanced users are using between multiple theaters in Broadway or multiple tour stops or a venue that has house freaks with another system coming in, which we can demonstrate today or maybe on Thursday.
We've got a couple of related questions that have just popped up.
Sure.
First one, back in the beginning, Patrick Riley wanted to know, were you involved in development of IAS?
We were not, no.
Okay, that's easy. And Ed Willock says, is it like ShowFlow, but RF cams and audio? I say it's basically the same thing. It's I said like Google Sheets or Google Doc. It's a shared document. Andrew Broughton says, USA locations only. When will you be adding anything other than the USA?
We're actively working on collecting, if he's talking about the TV data, we're working on those other countries' databases. But when we dive into our scan data stuff, we can reflect more on that.
Yeah, in short, no, you can use it anywhere and it'll still do its job.
I think you will be showing the fact that scan data, when people do scans, can be imported and become part of the data as well. So if somebody's doing a show in Europe, scans are been entered from Europe, and you can use those scans.
Exactly. And we do support all these countries' standards. So when you actually fill out the Google autocomplete, because we're trying to do as much for the user as possible, just by typing in an address, the time zone, the exact coordinates for TV data, the broadcast standard, it's all pulled in automatically when you type in that Google autocomplete. These are all the different countries we support.
Andrew Jones wanted to know if you support above 616 megahertz, like duplex gap, 900 meg, 6 gig, etc.
Yeah, we have no limit. We've seen some people make projects as all the way up to 10 gig.
Patrick Riley, in your pulled in RF DTV stations, you can manually deselect the station to allow frequencies to be put in it, right?
That is correct, and you can do it at multiple locations. So which we can get into.
Where are
Um,
you pulling the exclusion data from?
We can go into that more detailed later once we
Okay.
get into TV Scout and Scan Recon. But in short, for the US, it comes from the FCC, LMS and ULS databases. We'll make sure to hit that harder later in TV Scout.
Okay, and can this be operated through a VPN, or is it only a direct connection?
I don't think there's any issues with VPN. I actually don't know though.
And then GW Rodriguez says, are you saying a person could access to a different user's scan data?
Yes, and we can go more into that once we go to Scan Recon, which is our scan database API.
Okay, enough. Go on.
So sites are, Matt briefly spoke about sites before. I just want to kind of talk a little bit more about them. Sites are unique in our app compared to most other applications. So most are the project or the file, then zone, then frequency, then group, then frequency. For us, it's project file, then site, then zone, then group, then frequency. So adding sites allows us to have multiple geographical locations within one file. So why would you want to have multiple sites? Well, maybe you're on tour with a band and you're in one location, and then instead of creating an entire new file for the next location, importing the data in or doing a save as, you can just come over to here and hit duplicate site, choose what pieces of your calculation you want to bring over, and it just duplicates it. And so I'll just check all this right here. Even though I don't really have much in here, this is a new project. Hit duplicate, and now you can see it says copy of New York, New York, and it's as simple as coming in over here and just typing in a new address anywhere, and then pulling the new TV data and then recalculating. We've seen people use multiple sites too, just for like for instance at the Chicago McCormick Center, because it's so large, the east, west, north, and south wings, and then those are all 4 separate sites, and then within those sites they have zones, and then within that they have the groups for all the different rooms. So
This would be useful for a touring show that was in a different city every day that had the same pile of equipment.
it would be useful for that, yes, and keeping everything in one file, so you have one master coordination for your entire tour. Or if you're doing something that like you're covering an area that's so large, in multiple different buildings, you can do multiple site projects. Or if you're doing, let's say, a telethon and you have an E&G crew that the telethon is in LA and New York and Houston, and you have an E&G crew that's going to be visiting the Houston and LA locations throughout that show, you can actually put that E&G crew on their own separate site and then actually enable the interactions between them. So we don't just have zone interactions, we also have site interactions for different geographical locations. Sites are able to be imported and exported too, across projects. And you saw the duplicate feature before. So that's sites, it's new. It's pretty interesting to see how people have been using them. Originally, we thought it was going to be great for just tours, but people are using them for all different types of purposes now. Is there anything you want to add, Matt?
Yeah, Don, I think sites are good. I think what we missed was the user interface of Cord in general. Just describing, you've got your coordination list, your action window, the plot, and the frequency finder.
Sure.
Just the basics.
So after you create a project, this is kind of like your landing page for Cord. So over here on your left, this is your frequency list. This is where all of your coordinated frequencies would be. Down here on the bottom is your plot. This is where, or your graph. This is where you can see scan data and where frequencies lie in your spectrum. Over here on the all the way on the far right is your profile selector. So this is where you can select different pre-built equipment profiles, your custom ones, and etc. And do band planning, set different exclusions, inclusions, exclusions, all your calculation settings, and etc. Over in the middle window, this is kind of like a dynamic window. This window changes depending on what you're doing. Right now, we don't have any calculation results because we haven't calculated anything, so that's why it's blank. We don't have any equipment profiles selected, but this will auto-populate when you select a profile, as doing so here. And it'll bring in all of the information. And then over here is your frequency request, which is a feature we could talk about later, which is when you can send a unique link out to people and they can request frequencies for the devices that they're bringing to site. Matt, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that's good. It looks like the next thing on our list is TV Scout. So like Don's, or like we've just demonstrated already, most likely you're not going to need to open this window when you start your project. But for those advanced users that really want to know the details of our search results from our DTV API that we've created, you can view them here. You can also disable active channels here or manually enable ones that were incorrectly found. All this information, like we said earlier, is coming from the FCC database database itself. We've created our own API on top of that database that you can essentially just send a set of coordinates to, and it's going to estimate which channels are going to be receivable based on that licensing database. Because after all, it is the FCC and it's a licensing database, not an RF transmitter tracker or anything. So we kind of had to massage the data to get to this format. So we're showing various information about the transmitter at that location, the call sign, more info. You can view it on the FCC's website if you'd like to. But generally, we do all the search ahead of time, so you don't really need to.
My experience with the FCC database is almost guaranteed in any one location, there'll either be an extra station listed in it or there will be missing a station based on scanning. So where would you go to edit that? This screen, or would you just right click on your scan data and turn a DTV station on or off?
So it's important to note that we actually don't have any right clicking at all within our application because since this is a web-based app, we want it to be able to work on touch devices. So something we probably didn't really go into in the beginning is that you can use this on anything. You use this on your iPad, you can use this on your phone, you can use this on your computer, you could use it in your Tesla. Anything with a modern web browser, you can open up this application. So we don't have any right clicking for touch devices. To answer your question, Pete, you can disable it here or enable here. And if you actually were to enable it here, this will actually pop open saying, hey, just so you know, you don't have to do it from this page. You can actually, just by coming over here to the plot, and you can disable it and enable it right just from clicking on the number here. So I can come over here and I can disable public safety on channel 19 and turn it off. And then I can turn it back on just by clicking.
Is there any control of the colors of your display?
Currently right now, no.
Okay.
It's just yellow and pink.
And teal for astronomy.
But I mean, back on the previous page there, there you've got some red ones and some gray ones. I mean, what's the difference?
So the yellow is DTV and the red is WAN mobile. or public safety.
And where would you manually change that for yourself?
Change the color.
Or change the function of that channel? If I want to put stuff in channel 14, how do I?
You just turn it off. You just disable it.
Okay.
And if you want to re-enable it, you can just check it. It's by default going to pull in a TV when you check it, so you can just switch it back to public safety. Right now, we don't have the ability to set custom colors for
Right.
DTV and public safety, but that's certainly something we can add in easily.
Okay.
And so if it's not too clear, I'm coming at this from an audio guy, not necessarily an RF guy. All these are exclusions. So when we're going to calculate freaks, the frequencies are going to fall in these white space gaps. I'm sure everybody on the call already knows that, but just making it 100% clear. What was the next thing we were talking about?
Do you want to
Scanner.
kind of talk a little bit more, Matt, about like what you're doing to massage this data? A little bit more
Sure,
technical.
if you want. So every day we have multiple servers set up for this system. It's kind of like for the software people, it's built a little bit around a microservice architecture, which means there's functionality that's completely independent of other functionality. In our case, this TV Scout, it can go down, we can update the data, we can do all sorts of things. And the average SoundBase user would not know at all that anything was happening because we're completely independently mutating that system. What that means is that we can update this data like we do every day. We download a dump of the FCC database, we do our massaging, and then that gets served on a different database entirely from SoundBase. So we're, again, like isolating all these systems so that it's a more robust application. And then when you actually type a location into the address bar, it pulls the actual coordinates, the Latin long, not the zip code, not the address. And that's what is searched against. We do a little bit of path loss calculation, and we're using terrain data from the FCC. So our results are pretty dang good. I wouldn't say that they're 100% accurate, but we're pretty proud of the results that we're getting in the US. Obviously, international is very hard to do because many factors. One of the reasons that we don't have Brazil at this point is because they don't publish their transmitter data. So how can we know whether that channel is going to be active if we don't know how it's transmitting or the polar pattern of the antenna? So even though we do have the information from these other countries, we haven't come up with a way yet that we are satisfied with the results that we're getting, which is why it's just 100% US for TV Scout at the moment.
What exactly is your verification process for determining if a TV station actually really exists?
Oh, like the threshold?
Yeah.
I think it's like, I forget if it's like minus 40 dBm. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's just a single value threshold that's calculated. The signal strength is calculated for that particular site's location of a given channel. And if that signal strength is above our threshold, which I just can't remember what it is off the top of my head, then we'll say that it's receivable. And that signal strength is determined based on path loss and on terrain information.
As you are doing this update day by day, and I'm doing a show, does any of how do your updates show up on my coordination when I'm in the middle of a show?
It's only pulled in when you actually search for TV channels. So if you're in a coordination, I'm not going to change everything on you.
Okay.
It's only when you go search. I don't know how much more there is to talk about technical side of that, Don.
It's also to note that it updates every day, right?
Yeah.
Is there a way for me to force an update on my coordination with the new TV stations, or I have to start a new coordination?
You can just research here. You just type the location again, and then it'll do a new search for you.
Okay. A couple of tangential questions. Is this always going to require an active internet connection?
The current implementation does, but we are working on an offline version that will push to. We're considering this our cloud product, just
Right.
like Google Cloud or whatever, Google Drive. So this web browser-based one is going to require an internet connection, although it uses technology, which we haven't really talked about. The front end itself, the actual UI, is rendered using JavaScript. As soon as that JavaScript is downloaded into your browser, it can do its job without the internet. There are certain features like the DTV search, where if you don't have an internet connection, there's no local stored version of that information.
So
same thing with
when you've
frequency
actually
calculation.
created the beginning of your coordination and put in your wireless things, then it can be done offline.
Certain aspects of it can, others can't. You can't calculate frequencies when you're offline. You can't search for DTV. You can't upload scan data. It's just not, you can view the information, you just can't change it. I guess it becomes
Okay,
like a
'cause
read-only project. at
This
that
will
point.
be an issue because some venues I've been at, not usually, but some venues don't have internet.
Yeah, we know,
That's-
and that's part of this product in general. Like this first
Yeah.
iteration of SoundBase is that it's all about the collaboration and what the future holds for this. We understand that everyone wants the offline installable on my computer that will, magically work with the internet when I have it and magically work without it. And we are working on that. But it's a question that comes up many times, and we'll get there.
Right. On you touched on it slightly about your location calculations, and you said your location calculations are more accurate than the zip code entry. How do you verify that it's more accurate? What comparative analysis can you do?
Experiential. We know based on zip code that their zip code coordinates. Can you tell me where the center point of zip code 08852 is? That might be the post office, or depending on which system you're using, someone might just do an area, geographic area, and put it right in the middle.
So you're taking your Latin long and calculating actually from the transmitter antenna what the strength is going to be. And are you incorporating user scans at the same time?
The user scan aspect is nothing in the front end. It's all happening in the system itself. So whether a channel is active or not, it's kind of like a black box. We're going to say that channel 2 is active in New York City. Where we get that information from, we're not necessarily going to tell you.
So then my experience is with IAS is I put in a zip code, I have a zip code, and that's my starting point. But then I do a scan of reality and enter that in as what I'm really using. And often I'll find that my scan outdoors is terrible, and my scan indoors, it has plenty of usable channels, particularly for things like Axion Digital and ULXD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to quickly jump back to the online offline. So we will have an offline version. It's just right now we're still actively developing this program. So every time somebody puts in the URL and hits enter, they have the latest and greatest version that we have pushed to our production environment. If we were to have people down, and we push out updates weekly. So if we were to have an offline version, we would have to maintain that code base and constantly update that too. And it would require the user to have to re-download everything every single time. So for right now, as we're building the product, and still, actively working on it, we're just going to keep it cloud-based. And it's also kind of building something that works in a web browser has constraints, and it helps us optimize the product for when it does go offline. And because a browser's requirements and memory usage is much harder than let's say a MacBook Pro with 64 gigs of RAM. So running locally on a MacBook Pro with 64 gigs of RAM. So that's why we're kind of building it on the cloud first, and then everybody could count on it coming offline.
We did have a question related to that from Stefan Pavlik. Since this can be used on anything, are there plans for an Android and iOS app? I think he's not realizing this runs on browser, anybody's browser, Android, iOS, laptop.
Yes,
anything.
but we don't have mobile optimized UIs built for all the apps yet. There are certain aspects, like if you log in with your phone, it'll say you'll have limited functionality with this browser size. There's ways around it. You can turn your phone landscape and get and view it. But
Yeah.
One of our milestones for next year is to build mobile optimized views for every app, just to make that a little bit better of an experience.
Can we go on and do a sample coord now?
Sure. Do we want to pull in scan data first, Pete, or?
Sure, do that.
So scan recons are other API, and this is basically just scan files that people have uploaded to our database through SoundBase. I think we have about 1,700 files this year that people have uploaded, and we have all files all over. So what's cool about having this database is that we can actually, if let's say you're doing an offsite coordination and you just need to find a scan file just to make get your coordination going, you can actually use this part of the app to find a file, and you can actually see here, this is our DTV overlay from TV Scout, and it's actually showing with a real world scan file that was, the scan date was on November 1st at 8:02 a.m. and you can actually see how accurate it is. Matt, do you want to kind of talk about the scoring system for scan files? And
Sure. So on that left side there, when you're viewing a scan file, you're seeing file details and you see score details. As we all know, with scan file databases, it all hinges on the quality of the incoming data, and I'm sure Pete can attest to that. So we're trying to do our best to kind of call out the poor quality scan files before they make it into the scan data search interface. One of the ways we do that, there's 3 different ways we do it. One of the ways is using code. We estimate the score details, which are presented for this file over on the left-hand side. And we're calculating things like dynamic range, data density, meaning how many data points there are per megahertz, the noise floor, estimating the noise floor. We use like a repetitive analysis system to try to estimate how noisy the file is based on all those parameters, and then the min and max. And all of those parameters go together to create a file score. If that file score is lower than 10, it's not going to show up in your results. I don't think it matters too much, how we arrive at that number, but we're doing that on the back end. And as you upload the file, all that stuff happens. So we know that an uploaded file is going to be pretty high quality. Additionally, we have a user rating system. So if this backend code-based system fails or is inaccurate, users can upvote and downvote. What happens here is after a scan file gets negative, I think it's -5, that populates on our admin dashboard, and Donny and I can manually reject files that have poor user scores. A file is generally not shown in the search results. If a file is not shown in the search results, it's due to Donny or I excluding it. There's always a manual system in place to double check these things, because not all coding, not all software is perfect. So Donny and I manually verify flagged bad files. Let's see, what else happened? Those are the 3 ways that a file can be rated and excluded. So our scan database is pretty good, I think.
while you're searching for scan files, you can search by using different parameters, the device used, frequency
Now,
ranges.
So what you're importing the scan information from all those different devices and all its strange iterations and converting it into a simple CSV file that's usable in your software.
Correct. So
So
whenever
the tiny SA scan, which is a totally different format than a TTI scan or a Field Fox scan, it all converts it all into the same format.
Correct. So something we could actually talk about is uploading a file. If I wanted to upload my own file, we allow you to upload the raw format, and that's how we know that it has not been converted yet from all of these different makes and models. And these are currently what we support. If you have a certain type of, if you have a spectrum analyzer that we don't have in here yet, just send us an email and we'll add it in for you. And then if you uncheck this use raw file format, then we know it's frequency amplitude, and that's how you're uploading it just as a CSV.
This is
So-
where you would upload your own scan, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So something that we actually do is, and Matt, do you want to kind of talk about how the Scan, Recon, and TV Scout kind of talk to one another?
Sure. To go on a tangent here, we talked earlier about how we don't have governmental databases for all of the other international countries other than the US. So one of the things that we can do is analyze these scan files that are uploaded internationally, and based on a time threshold of, say, a month, determine which channels may be active at a given site based on user submitted data versus a governmental database. It's currently not active. We're getting pretty close for Brazil because we've got a lot of users in Brazil right now. And that will be a feature going live shortly. So essentially the governmental database, while the FCC system is pretty decent, it's way better to just use actual scan data. And they kind of feed into each other. So if, as Donny demonstrates the upload, you'll see that the system estimates which channels it thinks are active and which ones are inactive. And we're logging that information and then determining whether a channel should be active or not.
Was in that equipment model, was there a model for the Shure WWB? Right there, okay.
Yeah, we do SBD2 files and SBD3 files, and you can just, as long as you select it, we'll actually know which one the file is when you upload it. And again, if anyone uses SoundBase and sees their spectrum analyzer missing, just send us an email and we'll add it in.
Yeah, I've been seeing some RF Explorer come in recently, and we don't have that as an option just because it is a simple CSV export, but I think we will add that as an equipment model.
And because we're using the scan data to verify our TV data, we want to make sure that all of this information is correct, and log it all. Make sure that the scan make sure you're not doing a project in LA and you're trying to upload a scan file from New York City into the LA, and then it's all going to be messed up. So we like to just make sure that you're actually uploading the correct location, when the scan date was. Is it inside, outside scan file? Were there any active transmitters on when you recorded the file? So we try to get all that information. So I'll actually do this. I'll hit preview upload. And you can actually see here, so it's actually giving me before it hasn't uploaded the file yet, but it's actually giving me a preview of it. And you can see I went along and I disabled a bunch of these DTV channels when Matt was speaking before. And now you can come in over here and you can see how it's actually recommending that we enable these channels to be active. If it found some inactive channels, maybe like channel 33, if I had want to manually activate the channel 33, it would actually recommend to deactivate that channel.
If somebody wanted to upload to RF Explorer, what model should they use instead?
They can use the unlisted option.
Okay.
And it's just a straight CSV frequency amplitude file.
So me leaving all these boxes checked, probably don't need a 21. Just leaving all these other boxes checked, hitting confirm upload. If I were to come back in over here, you can see how I reactivated all these channels. And then again, if I wanted to deactivate them again, it's as simple as just clicking on the channel itself.
And with all these detailed descriptions we're giving, the whole concept here is that you can create a project, not even look at TV data. You can upload a scan file if you want, and within minutes you have a coordination done. You know, it's bringing the workflow really seamlessly together in a way that's like beneficial for everyone, rather than having, you know, multiple systems doing different things.
Actually, could you do that? Let's start with no coordination at all. And with minimal data entry, do a simple coordination.
With what, like you want 8 PSMs and 12 mics?
Well,
Something
yeah,
like
like that. But you go in, you put in the name of your show, you put in your location, and where do you go from there without having to enter a lot of other detail or a scan or anything? There, okay, you've entered your location. It's
Pulls in my
automatically
TV
pulled
data.
what you need, right? Yep.
And come in over here and select the file that's within 0 distance.
Well,
I
you
like
don't
this
have to
file.
do that. You don't have to do that, right?
I don't have to, but it's
Right.
as simple as hitting copy to project, and then now it's here. And then want to come in. Do you want band planning, Pete, or do you just want to calculate?
Just as simple as possible, just a simple calculation, right? Now, are these all triple beat or just
Yes.
regular third order? Okay, okay. I know you're clicking through this really quickly, but it'd be great if you could describe what and why you're clicking on something.
Oh, okay. I thought we were just trying to.
Thought this was a race,
Demo
Pete.
speed.
We're trying to get it done as
Yeah.
quickly as possible.
I think here's
The
the
sprint.
key. We'll certainly, you know, I think what Pete's illustrating here is that we also didn't want the audience to feel like this is a long drawn out process. I think what you just saw from Donny is here's all this stuff going on in the back end that Matt and Donny were describing, getting us to this point. But the reality is in a very short order, you have a very accurate glimpse of the environment behind it and your inventory in it, right? And that is one of the key things about this software is that it is very swift. So I think that was, if I can jump in there, Pete, I think that's part of what he was illustrating here is that, you know, we don't want to give people the impression that, you know, this is a long drawn out process. You guys are giving us a behind the curtain look, which we love, right? Because that's what our industry is built around. You know, put 4 audio people in a room and you'll get 12 different answers, right? We love this detail. So we just wanted to make sure that people didn't feel like, hey, this is something that's a big process. So you know, let's pick up where you were at there, Donny, in terms of you know, you've got these scans, and I'd like to point something out that as I was watching this, the power of community and collaboration is the scan, right? The in a market like Brazil, where you don't have access to the same FCC database, which is something we're very fortunate to have in our country, by the way. as much of a headache as they can be, to Pete's point at the top of the show, with taking Spectrum to do other things. We love having that, but this is where scan data really becomes vital, right? And what you were talking about in terms of how you vet that information. So
particularly if you have a dozen different coordinators go into MSG and do their scans, how do you pick which scan becomes your default MSG scan?
It's all based on the user searching. We're going to show them, if they're high quality scans, we're going to show them all. But I don't know if Don, you open up Scan Recon, it's going to give you a nice default date range. So if you zoom in, where do we have a bunch of them? I think in Broadway somewhere we've got a lot, just multiple scans in the same location. And you can just bounce through them with our UI. That was the other thing about the workflow here. You can click them over on the left side, or you can click the pin on the map, and then you can just toggle through with the arrow keys. And it'll zoom in on the map where that file is.
So the what you're clicking on now is through each file.
And then you see on the map how it gets highlighted in green. It's showing you that's
Right.
the pinpoint location where that was taken.
Okay.
So yeah, we've seen the two key components here to determining your environment. That's TV Scout and Scan Recon, right? So TV Scout we've started with. And the reason I'm saying this is I'm kind of going to back us up here for a second, because we did have a question. It's like, hey, where did that frequency come in? So let's pick up at, say, Scan Recon, Donnie, and take us from that point where we've said, okay, we found a lot of these different options for scan data. I'm going to settle on, something, and then take us back into how do I add then that hardware that's going to be in this environment?
Sure. So when you're searching for a scan file in Scan Recon, when you find one that you like, let's say it's this one, you have an option to download it over here or copy it to your project. So copying it to your project just brings it over into your project, and all of your project files live over here under your Manage Files tab. So you can see this is the one that I had just uploaded. If I click on it, it has all this info. And I can see all of my project files, or I can see all of the files that I've uploaded under my account.
Are these
From
stored
there-
local? Are these stored locally, or on the web, on the cloud?
No, this is all stored under your cloud account.
Okay.
And when we have the offline version, it will be stored locally up until you reconnect to the internet, and then it'll sync with the cloud and update with your cloud account. And so you can either search or you can upload your own file. And yeah,
Back to the equipment list. Can you upload the equipment list by connecting the hardware and have it just show you the hardware that's online, like in Workbench?
for monitoring purposes.
No, just you connect to the hardware and then it pulls in all the different hardware to get your frequencies.
It's a cool idea, but we're not there yet. I think with the
Okay.
offline version, we would. Because like connecting, there's a problem we're trying to solve here internally between Donny and I. Connecting to hardware devices with a web-based product, that's a hard problem to solve. You need a bridge in the middle somewhere, along with a computer with two network interfaces. You need to manage those bridged connections. It's a bear to solve, and we'll get there, but it's not there now.
Not quite yet. Okay.
Right. So let's, if you don't mind, let's just, one of the questions that came up is, again, how did you add that piece of equipment? So let's just kind of, I see you've got your scan data there, and we're over here. Let's just grab another microphone and add one there, Donnie, and kind of walk us through how you're adding hardware. If you want to get rid of that stuff, you're more, however you're comfortable there.
Get rid of the profile screen, because nobody's going to look at that.
What?
No, nobody's going to look at that.
So over here is our frequency finder window. So this is where you would actually search for different frequencies. We have different profile types. We have our own default SoundBase profiles, which are actually, well, we reached out to every single manufacturer and we wanted to make sure that we got their recommended settings. So every profile under the default SoundBase profile list is recommended by the individual manufacturer. Then we have custom. So that's if I were to build my own profiles, I would have access to them. They're stored in the cloud. So no matter where I open up this web browser, I'll have access to them. And then we have IAS profiles. So all the profiles from IAS, we know a lot of our users like those profiles. They're not what the manufacturers recommend, but they like them for obvious reasons. So they have access to them here too. And then this is where you would select your manufacturer. This is currently the manufacturers that we support. We have about 6,000 different profiles in our database right now. Electrosonics is definitely the largest. And then probably Shure second. And then it allows you to choose the receiver, and then after you choose the receiver, the equipment profile info comes right up on this dynamic window we were talking about earlier. And something that Matt and I really wanted to do with this program is we tried to do our best to is display as much information without making it look very cluttered. We wanted to keep more of like a modern app look, but we wanted the user to know exactly what they were doing when they hit the calculate button. So instead of having this profile buried within like a couple windows, you know exactly what parameters, what the start, the stop is, the channel spacing, and the intermod products, and what IND tests are being used before you even hit calculate. For every profile, we have 3 different versions similar to Workbench. We have More Freaks, Standard, and Robust. And then we can also talk about later too, but like when you recalculate, you can actually change those profiles. So let's say you start off with Robust, you're shooting for the stars, and then all of a sudden somebody comes in and asks for more frequencies. They're like, oh crap, you don't want to have to start all over from scratch. So you can actually recalculate those using a more liberal profile or variant of that profile. Matt, is there anything you want to add to that?
That's pretty good. I guess we can reiterate that this is a cloud-based system. So, and the models are also separate. So we can, if someone says, hey, I need store some band that we don't have yet, we can add it to our system and it'll show up immediately for you without, having to download.
If you're entering a generic frequency profile, there's no way to set the transmitter power of that device. So how do I know if it's a 250 milliwatt device or a 10 milliwatt device?
So TX power is informational only. We're not using that in our
calculation. Okay.
Yeah. Just due to path loss. Yeah. As soon as you put mics on stage, they're all everywhere, and we can never really know whether they're going to be impactful or not.
And if you were doing a Shure ULXD, how do you set it for high density mode?
We have all the high density profiles also in here. So if I were to, for instance, so you can see over here as G57 and then G57 HD.
Okay.
Right here.
Yep.
So we have all the high density variants of these profiles, and you can see how significantly different the spacing and the IND products are between the two. If I were to jump over to the regular G57 band, went from 125 kilohertz spacing to 350 kilohertz spacing.
How do you keep updated on all these different profiles from manufacturers? I mean, particularly even old equipment from the olden days when they had that use candles to run their wireless mic. Do you have all the old equipment in there as well?
As much as we can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a manual process still.
Right.
So for instance, Sennheiser came out with some new products, and we've already been in touch with them, and they're working on giving us all the new digital mics that they just released. We're working with people over at WYSICOM. They're working on getting us some new profiles. So it's, it takes a little bit of work, but it's not easy to maintain, but we're doing our best.
If you want to add a custom profile, can you copy another old profile to start with?
Yes. So if I come over here, if I can hit copy to new custom profile, so as long as I have an existing profile selected, I can click this button. If I click it, you'll now see it says copy up here. And if this new icon button has appeared, and I can edit it. If I click on it, I can change all of these parameters and change all of these hardware specifics. Then I can adjust all of the spacing and the IMD products. If I want to create a profile right from scratch, I can just hit the plus button and just go through this is a simple form, and then you can build your own custom profiles from scratch. If I want to delete the profile, it's just as simple as clicking the trash icon. And just like that, it's been deleted from my account. Something that's also cool too is that if I were to add Matt to this project, by clicking on the share button and typing in Matt at ShowCode.co and adding him in and setting him as an admin, if I were to now close this, you'll now see I have a different profile type available called collaborators. So the benefit of this is if Matt has his own custom profiles and he's doing frequency calculation, and I'm now going to go and maybe calculate some more frequencies. Let's say Matt has the special Axiom Digital G57 Plus profile that nobody else has. He can, by me adding him to the project, I have access to it and I can calculate it. And what's cool too is now that I have access to it, I can then duplicate it or copy it into my settings. So it's super easy to share profiles between users.
In this coordination, is there any way to see the versioning as the day goes on? Let's just see what you had in the morning versus what you had in the afternoon. Like in Google Sheets, you can sort of go back in history.
Right now, Matt, you may want to expand on this. Right now, we don't have a way to kind of restore previous versions, but we do up here underneath the project name. If you were to actually click on this, it'll open up a project history window, and it'll allow you to sort by app, by collaborator, by date, and then search a specific term. So let's say Beyonce's microphone was changed and you want to know who did it. You can just type in Beyonce and then it'll show you all the changes to that microphone. But we don't have a way to restore versions like Google.
Yeah, and if we're talking about a wireless coordination, I don't think you'd necessarily want, since this is an additive process, we get that distinction a lot between Workbench and IAS being additive versus analyze based. We are additive. So I don't necessarily think you would want to revert your changes. This allows you to view like project level changes and things like naming. We also have calculation history, which is a very powerful feature that keeps track of the value of that particular frequency over the course of your project. So you can see that it went from 514.525 to 514.550 and when that happened and who made that change. So there are those ways of seeing that, but it's not like Google Sheets where you can just restore to a version in time.
Somebody asked, where is it? If I import my scan, is it automatically uploaded to the scan database, or can I be anonymous and not upload it?
So we used to have an opt-out feature Right now, that it's in beta, we kind of, and it's free to use, we disabled that. But we will be re-enabling that soon. Probably within the next update or so.
Well, in reality, none of us care about privacy anymore, so it probably doesn't matter.
So, I'm looking here, you know, we've gotten through here. You're putting in, we've seen the profiles, we've seen ways to modify those. I noticed, you know, what are my next steps then to add this, you know, to search for a frequency after I've, you know, chosen this? Cause I'm just looking over at the various, options that you have, you know, and we talked about the various profiles. One of the questions is, you know, how do I add these? And then what does that little box do next to it?
Sure. So I'll select the profile again.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I'm trying to find G57 frequencies, and
Mhm.
since I have all my ears down low, I'll probably want to have all my microphones up top. So probably the first thing that I would do is want to use band planning. So I'll come over here to band plan, and I'm going to create a new one by clicking on the button right here. And I'll give this band plan a name. I'll call it mics. And I can do it based on frequency, or I can do it based on TV channel start and stop. It's a lot easier to do TV channel start and stop, so I'll select that. And it'll change here. And I'll do channel 28 all the way up to channel 33. And I'll add it. So now that I've added this band plan, you can now see it up here. And I can click on it. And that's probably something that we should talk about too, is how interactive this plot is. This is not just for this is not just a visual representation. It's pretty interactive. You can click on different things, enable different things. You can add frequencies. You can hover to see different tooltips and get different information about what you're looking at. So it's a super powerful tool.
So why don't you talk about that for a second? If you're in this phase, right, you're in this step, I'm doing some band planning. How does that interact? What are some things that I'm looking for with those features?
With the band plan, you can click it, so it'll move the plot just to focus on that area. And now when Don searches for candidates, those candidates will be populated right in the center of your screen.
Gotcha. I like this where it kind of walks you through those steps, right? That if you just follow that. Oh, there we go. We like green.
Don, I think this is one of the questions that came up where we've got a candidate list here, which I think IAS users are used to, but Workbench users probably are not. So they're questioning about what the checkbox is next to these freak values, which is you
right
select.
here.
Yeah.
So you can select which candidates you prefer. And by selecting them, you can then hit add selected. So you're only adding the ones that you have checked. You can double click on the actual number to quickly add it in.
What are the
then-
checkboxes next to the frequencies over on the left for?
Over here.
Yeah.
This is to do different things with your coordinated list. So this is your candidate list, and this is your coordinated list. So you can, you know, if you want to, you can multi-select to do like locking, or you can move frequencies quickly, recalculate certain frequencies. So it's
Can
like a
they-
multi-select.
Can they be dragged and dropped to a different section?
Yes, you can just by clicking and dragging. And I can move it around.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what that is.
Okay. So yeah, I
And
see.
then Don, then clicking on the frequency on the plot, you can also add it that way. A lot of different ways to add frequencies to your coordinated list.
Oh,
Now,
interesting.
Those green lines are fat just so they're easy to click on, unlike IAS.
So what's interesting about that is So the reason that they're this wide, and I'll actually zoom in, we're actually showing the bandwidth of the actual device. So you can actually see in this tooltip, it says 350 kilohertz. So this is actually occupying 350 kilohertz on my plot. Now, if let's say you wanted to have it more like the workbench or the IAF way with just the 1 pixel wide line, you have that option to change that. And that's in the plot settings, which is this little gear icon above the plot. So if I were to actually open that, you can see over here, it's coordinated bandwidth and candidate bandwidth. So if I were to disable this and hit save, it now goes to a 1 pixel wide line, and you can see my existing coordinated frequencies are still wide. And you can do it however, which way you want. Yes, so it's definitely a lot harder to click on it when it's this small, but it's
How
still
do you get it
possible.
back to the bandwidth size?
You would just go right back to your plot settings,
Right.
re-enable
Okay.
bandwidth, and hit save.
Got it.
We also have this frequency transparency setting. So it's the reason that we have this in place is so you can see how you can see the scan data underneath the frequency line. So you have like a little transient that you want to keep an eye out for.
Yeah.
You'll be able to see it. Eventually, we plan to have live scan data in this plot, and the way that this plot was architectured, it'll be able to support it. So that's why we have a lot of these features already pre-built in.
We have an AA attendee, anonymous attendee, who says he can't add a RAD belt pack to his coordination. Could you try to do that?
And also, I'd like to point out that the skinny little lines in the bar graph at the bottom, you don't have to hit them because it's so easy to check them off on the candidate list above.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah,
obviously we saw them disappear as soon as you went to a different window. So you don't have to panic that you don't have any spectrum left.
yeah. So something Matt and I wanted to really do is everybody has their own workflow, and everyone's very
Right.
particular about their workflow. So, I mean, just in zooming, you can click and drag just like IIS. You can use these different definable magnifying glasses. We have different presets you can jump to and create. So like there's a million different ways to do almost everything in this app. Again, that's coming from the collaborative aspect of developing it. Everyone has
Now
their own way.
that zooming is only for your screen. It's not for all the other collaborators, right?
That's correct. It's a local thing.
And can you click and drag on a section of the screen to select it?
Yes. So I can click here and I'll say I want to look at 21.
Okay. And then to go back.
To go back, I can hit this back arrow,
Okay.
or I can just jump back to my default bandwidth, which is also definable.
Got
If I
it.
want to define that, I just come over to my plot settings and I change it right here. And I think, Matt, that updates across which country you're in too, right? Your default start and stop.
I wish it did, but it doesn't right now. Sorry, guys in Brazil.
Let's continue with the RAD entry.
Sure.
Oh, and a note about this bug report built into the app. We want your feedback. So we've got a bug report system that you can just shoot us off a message real quick.
Yep.
And yeah, there's very possible bugs here.
That's the beauty of software, right? And we're all about live demos here. So, you know, we're one big happy audio family around the world.
So were they having issues with the VHF, the belt pack, or the base station? Because I just
They
calculated.
didn't specify.
Belt
Okay,
pack.
well here's belt
There's
pack.
belt
All right,
pack.
so
I tried on
So
a fresh
go to-
cord and I got some freaks.
I'll choose belt pack.
Right. So, and I see here when you're searching, right now, frequency quantity is based on range, right? So it looks like we're getting a few options there. Nice.
You can shoot us a message if you have an issue and we'll help you through it if it's not working right
Yeah.
for RAD.
What are my other options when I am searching for my frequency quantity there? Right now, it looks like, it's obviously set to a range. So here,
Sure.
just maybe talk through just real quickly, what are some of our options?
Sure. So we have, just like IIS, the way IIS workflow is, you have range and single. And then we have, this is kind of like a hybrid of between IIS and Workbench. And then uncoordinated works just like Workbench, where you add your inventory and then you calculate and analyze the frequencies. So for single, it's as simple as coming in up here. So you can see it shows the selected profile. And then I can just type a frequency like 187.175.
So again, I'm
Enter.
walking into an existing building. They have a RAD system operating already present. I need to coordinate around them versus making them change around me. As much as we'd love that, only Pete gets that option. So here's where I'd be interested, putting that.
Yeah, this is for a single entry. We eventually want to be able to have where you can upload a CSV file. So if you have them all in like an Excel file, you just upload them all at once. It'll
Where do you do that? Because when you go into some MGM out in Vegas, they give you a list of 885 frequencies you have to stay away from. And in IAS, you can enter them easily as a different zone. But how would you do it here?
Would you want to know what those devices were, or you just have to say off those numbers?
a CSV file of the numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what our static frequency uploader is for.
which is over
Yeah,
here.
it's at the zone level.
And that was import from a bunch of different things as well.
That'll take a CSV of just straight numbers, and then it will add those as a separate group to your current zone. It'll lock them, and they'll also be designated as a static frequency. So
Right.
we don't even know what device this thing is. I just know I have to stay off that number.
Right.
And
So
you
if
can
I'm
manually
walking in,
type them here.
Gotcha. So Encore gives me a list. It's like, here, these are everything that we're using. Or don't step on them.
And
Yeah,
they're
obviously you do want to know. Obviously, you'd want to know what these devices were if you had that information. But if you don't,
course.
then this is the way you do it.
Gotcha. And that gives us our generic placeholders.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Now, any of your frequencies you added, what if you didn't want to IMD between yours and theirs?
So these aren't checking for IMD
Right?
by default.
No IMD. Okay.
Yeah,
So they're just looking for direct hits.
exactly.
Gotcha. All right. And then we searched, found all those.
Yeah, so we got frequencies added, and now we've been talking about collaboration and everything. There's so many more advanced features, but it's already 3:30. So do you want to just talk about either collaboration or reporting, or like how we get this information to me, the A2 on site?
Yeah, let's
Sure.
let's take it to that. Let's generate our report, and then let's also see how that might tie into the collaboration at that point, right?
Sure. So you can actually see Matt is actually up here, and he's actually in the project as the avatars pop up as users are inside the project. So Matt, if you actually want to just start kind of filling out like these IAM names, you can see in real time, Matt is actually updating these.
Updating from where?
From his computer, he's got the project open,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and he's changing the names of the actual frequencies.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, do you have yet direct control of the hardware?
No.
That's what we were saying earlier, that's the forthcoming kind of nice features to add and that bridge that Matt was talking about being needed, right? I think that's what you were
Right.
alluding
Yeah,
to.
that's about connecting the web to your production equipment.
Right. But here, I definitely see this as a real helpful thing where somebody may have, like, I might have started the project and now the person who's actually going to be on site is populating what those labels actually are, right? Maybe I said, hey, I'm at the shop. I know that I'm sending you X and I've got my scan data and I've got this roughly in place. Now my A2 is actually putting more detail to it, right? Is one, at least one way I see that I'd definitely be using this.
Exactly. And that was just to demonstrate the real-time aspect of collaboration, that I could be labeling freaks while Don is doing something else.
Right.
The other aspect of it is calculation. So obviously with frequency calculation, we don't want to have conflicting information. So we built a system to go around that. I don't know, Don, you want to talk about the lock system?
Sure, because we are an additive an additive process similar to IAS. Every time you hit calculate, it's checking for all these inclusions, exclusions, and comparing to all of the IMD products that are existing in your nation.
So if you
So if I
wanted
were
to
to-
re-coordinate just your first IEMs up there, how would you
Yes.
recalculate just the IAMs?
I would come over to the group.
Right.
I would click the more button on the group, and I can hit recalculate all. When I hit recalculate all, it'll say, why are you recalculating? And I can give a reason. So it's for documentation purposes. I can be like demo for Pete. And then I could come in over here, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. I can actually choose which variant of the Store PSM 1000 G10 profile I want to recalculate with, which again comes into play where maybe you shoot for the stars, you calculate all your profiles with robust, and you go, oh, I'm out of space. You can recalculate with more freaks instead of deleting everything and then have to recalculate everything again, start from scratch with more freaks.
And do the unrecalculatable ones turn red?
Yes, the ones that were not able
Yeah.
to be recalculated will show up in a menu.
And
That's
then
all.
individual frequencies can be recalculated according to another standard?
Correct. So I can actually come in over here. Let's go to IEM1.
I got it.
And let's say the monitor engineer is saying 514.525 is a bad frequency. And this is actually a feature, Pete, that you asked for
Right.
some time back. So what's a quick way to like say, never give me 514.525 ever again. This is a no good frequency. I don't want to ever see it again. So what I can do is I can come down and then I can add to frequency exclusions. So by saying that this is a bad frequency, you can now see how there's excluded frequency. It's gone red. We have now here it's saying this is a bad frequency that has to be recalculated. And if I were to actually come into my exclusions list, and if I go to frequency, you can see the frequency here that I've excluded, and I can actually build an entire list of bad frequencies.
So now that that is a very cool feature. So now if I've excluded this and I need to now solve for IEM1, right, that it needs a new frequency, right?
Yep.
So I've
So then
said
I
this
would-
is now a bad frequency. Don't use it.
Correct. So I can either recalculate from this window or I can manually accept it because it's now a incompatible frequency.
Okay.
I can recalculate it from here, or I can recalculate it from this window up here. For this demo purposes, I'll recalculate here. And you can see this is all of the profile info that it's going to be used. Again, trying to give the user everything, give them all the info up front before they commit any changes.
Gotcha.
And we'll say we want it to be recalculated, and it shows that it was first initially calculated as standard, but let's recalculate it with more freaks profile. And then I can add it to a band plan if I wish.
Okay.
And I'm going to hit recalculate. So then it came up with two results. So now it allows me to actually choose what I want to what I want to replace this frequency with. So these are the two results that it came up with, 512.650 and 515.725.
And
Let's just
obviously
say
it's
I like-
not using that original.
Right.
Yeah, it's still excluding 514.525. And if I hit set, and now this has been recalculated. I
And
can
that's
click here to
interesting.
clear it.
Now,
Okay.
that excluded frequency is not used in your recalculations, right?
Yes,
Yes, it's not used.
it's not used.
Okay.
And then we also, a different type of exclusions we have are ranges, where you can actually set exclusion ranges in your, and they would represent down here on the plot.
Gotcha. So that would be your, if you were told by the house, I've never run into this, but if you needed to avoid something specific, you could do that, or just create through band planning, and it'd be one other way. Gotcha. And I noticed that it's a set button instead of a checkbox, right? That you're confirming that new change, which I like. I think that's it's a good
It's
way to
nice.
pause you for just a minute, because when you get into that flow of got my checkbox or just double click my frequency, I think that's excellent.
So obviously, if you were to recalculate our Axie digital, because there's so much more wideband and there's so much more room, if I were to actually recalculate these guys, and I'll do more freaks, and I'll do within the mic band plan, you're gonna have way more options to choose from
Yeah, I see that.
to replace it. So Matt, should we show them the recalc history?
Just before you go on though, is there a way to auto name it?
Yes. So if I come in over here to the groups, to the group settings, or the group edit menu, by clicking here, you'll see I can sort by frequency ascending or descending, by name, and I can also change the color. So if I were to change the color to yellow, it'll actually reflect correctly in the plot here. Now coming in over to auto enumerate, I can give it the prefix IEM 1 and say 2 digits. And it kind of gives you a little example down here. And if I hit auto enumerate, you can see how it quickly named all of my frequencies for me.
Very cool. And I like that color choice. That's great. Giving you more options for differentiating.
So since this 512.650 was the old 514 that we said we didn't like, if I actually were to come into my calculation history, you can actually see here that it shows the date and the time that we changed it, what it was, and what it went to. So every time you recalculate something, it's logging it. So you can always have like a place to go back and see, and you can see the person who did it was, and it was individual because I had only done that frequency. If I were to recalculate the entire group, it would say it was a group recalculation.
And then show you all the frequencies that were changed.
Going
Exactly.
back to where you set the color for this particular wireless mic, you might want to add a pattern option as well, because there are a few people that can't see color. So if you had, checkerboard or slash lines left, slash lines right, something like that to indicate it a little bit differently, it might be nice.
Thank you. That's
Yeah,
great
that's a good
feedback.
point. Yeah.
It's interesting too, because this green for this recalculated, it was originally pink, but then an A2 that was colorblind couldn't see that. So that's why we had changed it to green.
There you go.
Will that be a user selection screen maybe in the future, colors of things?
Yeah, that is very easy to implement. We just
Or
we
maybe-
haven't built out the user settings page yet.
Yeah. Or maybe just plain black and white might be good for some people,
So I saw focus frequency.
Sure.
What was that about?
Over here.
Yeah.
So if I go over to focus, it's just going to do like a 3 meg wide window over that
Mhm.
frequency. So again, this is kind of going back to when our plans for having live spectrum data in the plot. So if you have, like, let's say this is your money mic and you want to focus on it, you can quickly click it and it'll actually zoom in right here. And you
So
can
it's gonna
actually see
take you
it.
right there.
It takes you right to it. Exactly.
Excellent. Excellent.
We also have two built in. If you were to actually click on the frequency, you can focus right from here, highlight it. If you hit highlight, you can see how it highlighted it up here for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that again. Highlight, and actually found it for me. And let's say I'm in a different zone, a different site, etc. If I hit highlight, it'll actually bring me to the right spot and highlight it for me. So you can quickly find it on in your coordination list. You can quickly exclude it, say it's bad. You can move it, so like moving it to a different group, and then you can also recalculate.
Let's go on a little bit after and see what you can do with these frequencies after you've done your coordination. How can you distribute them to the people that need it and give them an email with their specific frequencies in it? If, let's say, an ENG crew is coordinated, that kind of stuff.
Sure. So, Matt, do you want to kind of take the lead on this
Yeah.
one?
Sure. There's two ways of distributing information: real time or static. Everyone's used to the static way. For example, sending a PDF through an email. We built both because that's what people are used to. So Don showing you can create a zone report from the zone menu. And this is a standard report output. We do allow multiple templates. There's lots of options here. Different file format outputs if you need to massage it after the fact. And these are our default templates. You can copy ours and modify it and make your own. So you can have a custom template if you like. You can also manage what's going to be present in the actual report. And then when you create the report, it'll just download as a static file.
Or how do you download this report to go into their workbench, for instance?
That's also from the zone level. You can export as a CSV. Download for Workbench. And I don't know if do you want to demo the import of that, Don?
Sure.
So the workflow for this, it downloads a zip file that you have to unzip, and it's going to have a CSV file for every model in your zone. So you have to tell Workbench what you're actually using, which is why we broke it down by model. And the files are pretty clearly labeled, so you know what's what. The goal is to have a much better flow with this system, in addition to just talking to the devices directly, because it's an open API standard. But this works for right now.
Gotcha. So when I'm importing into Workbench, I'm looking for each model that I have, and that would be for any model that Workbench deals with, right? So RAD, Shure, Sennheiser, Electro, whatever that is, be broken down by that model. Then I'm going to import that specific model, which is in the zip file, correct?
That's right.
All right.
And something about analyzing, most of the time ours show up green in Workbench, but because there are completely different ways of calculating and all that, sometimes you'll get some red with our outputs. The same that you'll get when you're importing frequencies from IAS.
And that is something to note, is that we allow you to export as a zone to be imported into IAS. And we also allow users to import zones from IAS into our app.
Where do you
back to the
actually
information?
Where do you actually create different zones in your cord?
So for every level, we have it's pretty similar layout. So sites, to add a new site, the settings for the current selected site, and then the site selector. And it's no different for zones. So you can add a new zone, see the settings for that zone, and then select the zone and also have all the different actions beneath it. So if I were to create a new zone, I just hit plus button here. It says untitled zone. I'll call it zone 2 and hit add. And now I have a new zone. And something to note on the plot, right now I'm showing all zones frequencies, but if I only wanted to view my zone 2 frequencies, I would just select zone 2, and now you can see the previous zone we were working on is no longer showing here.
And if I want to do a report then of all zones, obviously I saw the zone report,
And then you would come up to your next level up, which is sites. So here you can download an exclusion CSV report.
okay?
Just for different users. After I think for Spike, for Signal Hound, for monitoring reasons. And then you can also create a site report here. And it looks very similar to the zone report. And it gives you, allows you to choose all the different zones and groups now.
Gotcha. So that's where I can see everything, or I can just hand out my report to whatever zone those folks need. That was always a frustration, was, you know, giving everybody
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah, a lot of people doing, we had somebody do a festival recently with about 700 frequencies per day. Down in South America. And I mean, he loved the ability to just uncheck this, because he was using IIS. He would have to export it into like a Word document, delete the stuff that he didn't want to share with certain bands, and then send it individually. Here, he was able to be like, this band, you know what I mean? This band's report, and
Right.
do it all individually. Made it really easy for him.
Yeah, that's a definite benefit there.
In the case of that coordination, how does he save his coordination for today and do a new one tomorrow, which he has to save it as separate files, or there's no history saving?
Well, I think there's a few ways that you could attack that. You can create a new site with 0 interactions enabled and call it Tuesday, and then
Okay.
duplicate it, call it Wednesday. So, or you could use time-based frequency calculation, which we have built into this app. So, you know, I'll actually come back in over here. And I will,
Right.
and if I come in over here to time of use, oh, I haven't set a project start and stop. That's why. But if for this demo, I won't do it. But you can, if I had set when I created this project the initial start date and stop date, I can then add the dates to the group, and then I can select and look at it day by day, and then like a little filter would appear right here.
What would be the workflow for a festival that has 50 bands coming in, and you want to coordinate for each band, but take into account the band before and the band after?
So it's interesting. So it kind of depends on how you want to use it. So we've seen some people do festivals. Somebody did a festival recently at Dodger Stadium, and the way he did it was kind of the similar way that when I would coordinate festivals is I would have a morning file, like an afternoon file, and then a night file. And so what I would do is I would actually have multiple sites for morning, afternoon, night. But the person that did that festival recently used time of use, and they actually did it based on the group. So every band had its own group, and then they set the time that band was going to be performing or be rehearsing. But the only problem that I have with that is you have to be careful, because, you know, artists change their minds. So you have this all figured
No.
out, and
No, they would never do that. No.
yeah. So that's kind of like time of use is great if you're really certain for
So you could
when
set
those
your
devices can be used.
time for band 1 to overlap the time for band 2, and the time for band 2 to overlap band 1 and band 3. The only problem with that is nobody ever keeps a schedule.
Yeah, so like instead, I know like a lot of people in IIS, they'll do like, if let's say you have a microphone on 470.0 or 470.000, if they have another band, they'll do 470.001, right, to have duplicate frequencies. So some people do that, but this, you don't have to do that because with time of use, it doesn't need to account for direct hits or any IMD.
This software can't actually do any scans, right?
Not yet.
Right. So you take a snapshot, import that, right?
Correct.
Is how you're doing that. So here was an interesting question around like two-way radios and implementing those. And then the same person asked about Bolero. Obviously, these systems we don't have any control over and in any way, but they obviously occupy that. But two-way radios we could, right, in principle. Do you see that as an option to add into here for tracking those kind of things?
Yeah, and right now you can kind of in a way track them with like with band planning. So I can create like a Bolero 1.9 deck band plan, and then if I were to go all the way up to 1.9 on my plot, it would be there. And then we have different viewing options that you can turn on, like overlays, band plan overlays. So then it would actually overlay and occupy that part of the spectrum. For documentation purposes, because you can't coordinate those frequencies, but if you want to section it off and know what is there in your spectrum, then that's one way to do it.
Gotcha.
And regarding two-way radios, we do have some mobile radio profiles if you are actually coordinating them.
Gotcha.
Portable and base.
And then that way you can also account for them just if people are coming in again, documentation purposes, not even so much that you're doing anything with it. It's just what's active and what's in my RF environment around me. There was a question about the best practices for using time-based features. So maybe here would be a question: what should I not do so I don't screw myself?
There's a bunch of foot guns here. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot a lot.
Yeah, the more features it has, the fewer you should use. Kind of like I did earlier when I was trying to watch the show, not realizing that my ID was present on multiple devices.
You didn't have anybody to coordinate your devices.
That's right. I need somebody to coordinate my life. Oh yeah, we're recording this. Never mind. Yeah, so back to time-based. That's a pretty cool feature that is something that we really don't see on a lot of products, right? That's to
the point where I don't really understand what it is.
Well, if you're using your wireless mic, all of a sudden you get a text. Your frequency is not valid anymore.
Put another quarter in the
exactly.
No, but that is something that time-based is something that we let's talk about Europe for a second, right? There would be an example of, obviously it could be a longer period of time, but you're given a frequency and you're only given a frequency for a period of usage time, right? So that's not quite the same as what we were talking about earlier with using it during a festival where we have a very narrow window of time and we're trying to, manage that. But what are some of those key things about time-based features we should be mindful of?
Well, I think it's the reason that feature even exists is for very high density frequency calculations. So it's for the users that go, oh my God, I'm in LA, I have 3 or 2 TV channels available. but I have 60 bands coming in. You know what I mean? And it's just not possible to do. So it's just another tool in the belt, like, you know, on the tool belt to try and get as many frequencies that are, you know, calculated against, instead of just spacing everything 300 kilohertz apart, which when you're desperate, sometimes people do. It's just trying to take a more methodical approach to it. But you have to be very careful because, again, if one thing changes, then it, you know, it could throw a lot of things off, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, so it sounds
maybe
like
if
an
you're-
overlap window, like we were talking about earlier, is probably a good thing. You know, the literal minute to minute, because we know production schedules never lie, but let's just say they might be wrong, right? Now,
Yeah, and in the festival example, it's for me that would be most concerning is like usually like the order of performances is pretty rock solid. It's more about the rehearsals in the morning. So you know, this person may say that they're going to rehearse at 8, but then they swap with this artist last minute. So you just have to, for that particular example, you have to be careful.
so you know, I saw we generated a report, right? Because that was kind of our last step of any coordination. Can I use how does my collaboration features work? Let's say there were 4 or 5 of us in this project, right? How, and I want to get this report out, right? I've generated a site report. Obviously I know as a user, I could go in and look at this and make my own, right? But maybe you're in charge, Donny, and you want to be able to push those reports out each morning. Is that just do it email, or is there, how would we use some of that?
So when you generate that hard copy report, it's downloading as a PDF, and then from there you would distribute it, whatever service you wish. We do have another feature called real-time reports, which you send somebody a static link and it'll actually update in real time, just like the application. So I can
That's the feature
actually,
that I think is really valuable. Like as an A2, I didn't like those static emails every day. So I would just like to know where are my freaks at, and I can just go to this link that Donny's going to generate.
There you go.
and this, so to generate this, these real-time reports live within site, zone, or group. So depending on how much information you want to share, you can adjust. I'll do it based on site. So I'll click here. I'm going to enable this report. And it has this unique link. Now, something that's also cool too is like if you're on a festival, you can just put this QR code up backstage and people can scan it and get all the info that they need. We also we have this for frequency requests too. So if you're a band coming in and you need to do a request, you can just scan this code and then submit all the all the devices that you need frequencies for. So if I were to actually jump to this real-time report, and you can password protect it too if you wish, but if I were to go to this report, you just say that you're not a robot because this is an open internet link, so we just want to verify. You can see here, we have all the different devices, and if Matt were to actually go in and change the name of these IEMs, you can see them updating in real time. So what's cool about this is you send this link, they can from there email it, print it, and always have it on their phones. So a lot of times this is what I do personally when I'm doing frequency coordinations on site. I'll just send this, I'll text this link to the A2. He has it on his phone. Anytime I make a change, it's all documented here. And we're currently working on refining this UI and making it a little bit easier to read and more optimized for mobile.
Would this display also show the time, their time slot?
In the
I think it
refactor,
does.
yeah, in the refactor of this page, it definitely will.
Yeah.
Another thing that we're going to add is a button for them to press. I need a new frequency because this one sucks. So
So they can click
them to
on
do
that and just request a new frequency from you. And so you would then, it would be marked on yours and you just get a new one that we push to them.
Exactly.
And if we were using time-based coordination and doors were held for 45 minutes because the lobby was underwater, how can you slide all your times later in the day for your full coordination?
Right now, you would have to do that, I believe, individually per group. We
Right.
don't have a mass time slot move for all groups.
I think,
But
yeah, I
that's
think
an
something to
interesting-
note there is that time-based is not necessarily time, we're calling it time of use, but think of it as just a window of frequencies that are applicable with each other for a given window. So whether your doors were pushed 30 minutes or an hour.
It has nothing to do
yeah,
with the show time. It has to do with
Right.
just the time of day. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you have another show in a different zone or site that's also starting, and that one starts on time, then it could throw things off. So I guess it's very case dependent.
We've covered an awful lot today, and I think we're getting a little bit of a screen weary. But I think one question that comes up many times is how is this going to be paid for, and how is the subscription going to work?
So as of right now, when we have certain feature sets that we would like to add in that are not built in yet. Pretty much everything that everyone has seen today, we expect to remain free. Down the road, we want to add live spectrum data, talking to devices over the protocols, pushing changes to devices. Like right now, Matt and I's dream is I'm in New York, Pete's in LA. Pete's got his laptop hooked up through Workbench, or he's got Cord open and he's plugged into the network or his control network for all his Axient Digital. I make a frequency change, or I change the name here. It goes over SoundBase Cloud to Pete's computer, pushes over ShowLink, and then changes it in the hand of the artist. So that's the end goal for Matt and I. And for those features, they're going to be a premium, just because it's a lot of tech debt, and manufacturers come out with new stuff all the time, and it would be a lot of work to maintain. But this, we pretty much plan to keep free.
That's terrific. That was always a concern of mine, particularly you get on a show, you have a subscription, you're coordinating a show, and you add all your A2s to your account. Well, initially it was thought they would have to have subscriptions as well to use it, but that's obviously is not a workable situation. But keeping it more like Google Sheets is a much better option. But we certainly are not against paying for features like directly controlling wireless hardware and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there'll definitely be a paid version, but I don't think it's not going to be a limiting. Like the free version will never be limiting, so it will never be like only a certain number of frequencies you can calculate or
users
or anything
right.
like that. It's going to be more feature based, so like probably something like time-based calc and all, like something that like a pro user uses.
Right. Interesting question or note from Eric Tumbleson. He's saying it would seem there is a legal issue with forcing the upload of a scan. It falls within the category of an NDA for a show, and I cannot believe that a scan is not public information. I mean, it's floating around my head right now, all the scan, and there's no reason I can't upload that or see that and violate any sort of NDA. So I think the answer is it's not the same as sharing the console programming or the actual frequencies, which obviously are specific to your show. So I don't think there's an issue about uploading a scan requirement. Although obviously some people wouldn't want to, wouldn't want to share their life. So they would want to say no, but.
Yeah, so in like the next week or so, we're re-enabling that opt-out feature, so that wouldn't be a concern.
Right.
I do agree with you, Pete, but maybe if somebody's doing something in like a government building and there's, they don't want to see certain devices or,
But
you
your
know what I
scan
mean?
is not showing devices. It's the RF in the air. It is the public information. You can't deny that. I'm
That is true.
gonna stand firm there. Anyway,
Either way, Eric won't have to worry because in like the next week or so, that'll be re-enabled.
there we go. There we go. He can be anonymous all he wants to be. Marco asked on the zone groups, if you have one active zone and you add another zone, do both zones work together? Or is every zone independently coordinated or some version of both?
So unlike, I think he's referring to IIS based on that question.
Right.
With our app, you don't activate or deactivate zones because we have interactions. So unlike IIS that only checks for direct spacing on disabled zones, we allow you to check, uncheck, and we take it a little bit step further than Workbench too, because we actually allow you to go all the way up to fits instead of just intermods. So it's kind of just a different workflow. But if you want to treat it just like IIS, just leave channel spacing enabled. And by default, that's how it's enabled.
So you can either select just channel spacing or intermod as well.
Correct.
What if you only wanted to do channel spacing for your ears, but not for your mics? Because you're going to be far enough away from the other venue. The mics are never going to get there, but the ears might.
Right now, we don't have a way to do that. The interactions are not group based. They're zone based and site based. I guess you would create a separate zone for just your microphones, and you can call it your mic zone, and then have a separate ear zone, and then change the interactions.
AA is asking, when will Dashboard and Harmony be available for beta?
Soon.
Harmony,
Soon.
yeah, soon. It's we're working on them hard right now. Harmony is closer than Dashboard, but obviously the power of SoundBase is everything being in one place. So like the more apps we release, the more features, the more inclined people are to use it. So we're working hard to get towards it, maybe early next year.
Yeah, our original goal was to have a demo to show of Harmony for this presentation, but we're kind of perfectionists, so we want to make sure that it's ready for public consumption.
Well, I think when we do the Thursday show, the first part of that will cover the intercom part and then delve back into some more detailed look at the RF coordination. Because there's certainly a lot of functions here which we've touched on, but not really delved deep.
Yeah, there's a lot around calculation and interactions that we haven't touched, and how all that works.
And frequency requesting.
Yeah, we didn't.
Oh yes, definitely. Sending out a form to a band to give you their frequencies and having it populate directly back into your coord is a terrific feature. AA is again asking, how is SoundBase going to remain free in the future? Well, by not charging for it.
Our goal is to monetize our systems elsewhere, not by the end user, which we've built our system to be microservice based, like Scan, Recon, and TV Scout. And as an end user, I'm sure you guys understand the value of those two systems. So if we can provide data about what TV channels are receivable in an area, and we can sell that to a manufacturer or charge a subscription to a specific company or user, that's where we would prefer to monetize rather than the actual technicians on show site. And it's a lot better that way because we have to maintain those systems as well. So there's a lot to maintain, and it's a lot of time and effort, and this is our side project. So we have to monetize it somewhere.
Well, I certainly think your time is worth it. And I think the danger would be you deciding I'd rather make money on a show than do programming on SoundBase. So I think it's important to keep both of you programming and locked in your garages to maintain this.
My seatbelt is fastened on my chair right now.
Exactly. Stuart Schwartz, hello, Stuart, is asking, can you custom arrange the order of frequencies in a zone? In other words, not list them numerically or in order.
Yes, you can click and drag different frequencies into different groups to whatever order you would like. You can click and drag groups to change whatever order you want your groups in. And this order is respected too in your reports.
And can you order them alphabetically by name?
Yes. So if I were to come over here, I can sort by name. And just like that, it sorted all of them.
Okay. And I know this software doesn't do any scanning, but eventually do you plan to integrate equipment that could provide a live scan?
Yeah, the way we're planning on doing that is with a SoundBase bridge. I'm calling it for better or worse at this point. And that bridge will live on your local computer, and that's what's going to connect to the actual hardware. And that SoundBase bridge will then push the information to the SoundBase cloud. So technically, we can have a signal hound connected to over USB, use that open API that exists, and take that information and shove it up to SoundBase. So that you can see live scan data. Same way that we would do, it doesn't have to be network based in that case because this is a native application. The SoundBase bridge would be a native application that connects to your USB serial devices, whether it's an RF Explorer or whatever. So it doesn't just have to be network.
When you hover over a frequency down in the graph, does it show you the name of that frequency?
Yes, it shows the frequency.
IEM 09, I see. Okay. Yep.
Yep, and it shows the zone and the group.
Yep. I think we pretty much covered everybody's questions that we have. It's been a terrific show. And lots of people are saying, thank you. This is amazing stuff. Eric says, I don't quite understand what he's saying. So we are the product, not the customer? I don't understand that. Whatever.
I mean,
Yeah, I think he's talking towards scan data probably.
We have I think the overall statement for that is like we have a privacy policy. We don't take or share your data or information. This is an encrypted, secured product. And we're not monetizing your show data in any way. We're just stating that these APIs these microservices, we're also licensing them out to other companies, agencies, manufacturers, so that just like SoundBase, they can get these results for their products.
Again, all the people that are still here, the 45 out of the 150 which signed up for this show, I'm sure you all know there's another show at 2:00 on Thursday which will cover even more of this stuff. So you can mull this over and look at the device, the software you've downloaded, each of you separately, and come up with a bunch of new ideas and questions. And I think the important thing to realize is both Matt and Don are extremely open to customizing and making things. I mean, if you have an idea, they're really open to it, because this is not only a collaboration of their programming skills, but the user experience. So if you see something you'd like one thing I noticed is I wish that the live screen window went all the way down to the bottom and not was cut off by the page, or if I wish I could grab this live screen window and pull it off somewhere else to make it not stuck on one screen. But little things like that, if you add it to the bug report, they're very open to making these kind of changes.
We also have a Discord too, which you can find up in this help menu up here. And if you join our Discord, we have a couple hundred users, and that's where a lot of people can quickly get access to us. Email works too, but it's just another form. Also, if you're having trouble with something, it's kind of nice too. You don't have to wait for Matt or I to reply. A lot of times people in the community can help you or answer your question if they know how to do it already. If you haven't joined the Discord yet, we recommend it. Great way to direct message us, ask questions, and get help.
Okay, that's terrific. And just to make sure everybody knows, this show is recorded, and in a couple of days it will be on the Practical Show Tech website, so you can watch it over and over and over and over again, and invite all your friends and neighbors to come in and watch it as well. Much more interesting than watching the daily news. And on Thursday, we'll also record it again for those people that have said they can't make it for Thursday. I want to see it again. It'll be there. Don't worry about that. Well, thank you very much, Don and Matt. This has been terrific. It's great that Practical Show Tech is doing another couple of shows. We had a terrific 2000 where we did over 80 shows in that year, and it really saved our sanity. So we, instead of binge watching TV all the time, we were binge making TV. So it was good. It was good. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And we will be back in 48 hours or so.
46 hours.
46 hours, exactly. Set your alarm.
Good night, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Bye-bye.